Are you tired of pushing? Are you tired of struggling? Pushing to get out of bed, pushing to get letters written, pushing to make dinner or to go shopping. Life sometimes feels like just too much struggle. Sometimes you feel like you just want to sit down and never get up again. Pushing is a habit. Pushing comes from fear. Pushing comes from early childhood wounds that happened when we were very young. We came into this world brilliant, with all the potential, all the spiritual DNA to fulfill your purpose, to do what you're meant to do. And you know what? When you're doing that, you're not pushing. It feels great. You can work endless hours because each moment you feel inspired and lifted and excited. But when you're doing stuff that you have to push, you are actually stopping success from coming to you. Pushing is a habit. I said we come in as these brilliant beings, and we come into these three-dimensional bodies. These bodies have their own agenda to keep you alive. And they have an array of tools to make sure that happens. Chemicals, antibodies, white blood cells, fingernails and teeth. The body wants to keep you alive. And you are born into a family. A lot of us are born into dysfunctional families. Maybe your parents, your father was overly critical, or maybe he was absent. Maybe he left. Maybe your mother was overprotective, or maybe she was critical or demanding. Our parents have their own experience, their own biography, their own damage. And they bring that into the mix. Maybe your parents were actually abusive. Maybe they fought all the time. The child wants to protect itself. The child wants to stay safe. The child wants to make sure that it gets its basic needs met. Sometimes the family is so chaotic that there isn't even enough food in the house. And then the child at a very young age actually has to take over, to take responsibility. Other times, it's a problem of not feeling wanted or not being loved because the parents, maybe they're narcissistic, or maybe they don't know how to love because they've never been loved. There was a psychological study of chimpanzees, and chimpanzees, babies that did not receive love from a parent were not able to take care of their own children. You need to learn that. And our culture has been dysfunctional for a long time. It used to be that a village raised children, that took a village, that there were communities. Now we live in these isolated dyads of husband and wife and children and very little extended support. And so maybe the mother stays home or she gives up her career, or the father stays home and gives up his career. And after a few days of being alone with a crying, screaming infant can drive you crazy. In my own case, I was the third born of a mother who she was emotionally hurt. Her father was an alcoholic and she was an only child. So she didn't know how to share. She didn't understand that children have their own biographies, their own life story to enact. She saw them as extensions of herself. And although she was very emotional and very expressive, she didn't understand nurturing because her mother was cold. So she passed that on. Maybe you have that similar experience. So what happens? The child learns how to protect itself. Oh, by the way, hi, I see somebody looking in. Thank you for joining. Please post a comment or, a heart or a like. I would really appreciate that. As I was saying, the child needs to survive. Basic things like food and protection and warmth. And I had a client in which that was not provided. Her mother was so needy of attention, she became a party girl, and she would go out every night. And sometimes she wouldn't come back until late. And the daughter, my client, would go out and pull her out of the bar. And she became a controller. She took over very early, and she had this fear that if she didn't have everything controlled, that it would fall apart. And so she would have to push very hard. Maybe you become a people pleaser. This is pushing too. It does have its benefits. You start to feel good when people acknowledge you. And that's one of the seductive aspects of any of these patterns, is that they work for a while. And you feel safe, and you feel appreciated. You may even feel excited. But then, at some point, it stops working. And then you feel angry. You feel cheated because you didn't get back what the agreement was if you gave yourself up, if you stopped thinking about what your needs are and gave and gave and gave, that you would get something back. But instead, you end up running on empty. You just give it all away. That's the people pleaser. And then there's a performer, the performer is very like the pleaser, only they do it in a different way. They do it in a larger scale, and it has to do with how they perform. Maybe a rock star or an artist or an actor, and they love the attention and it feels great. But then if they get those negative reviews, oh, that is such a hard life, isn't it? When they get those negative reviews, and it's devastating. And then they get angry, or then they get depressed. So it's anger or depressed. And look at that. That's like classic survival response, a fight or freeze. And freeze is like you kind of hunker down and you feel like you're not worthy. And so depending on whether you're external or internal, and sometimes you switch back and forth between the two. And by the way, these patterns, it's usually not just one. You probably incorporate all of them at some point in your life. Then there's the perfecter, the one who always feels like she has to go out and get more education. And of course, because in school she did good. And so she wants to be there where she can get that reassurance and that approval and feel good. And I'm sorry, these human bodies, they need approval because we're herd animals. We are wired to connect with other people. We are wired to want that approval, to want that reassurance. Our survival actually depends on it. And that can be addictive, that can be obsessive, that need to get that approval. And so you put all this energy in and until you crash. Sometimes you crash, your body crashes. I have a client who was more of a performer. She was working very hard at work. And by the way, in this day and age, they are crazy in those corporate environments. They push those people to the limit. They use them up and throw them away. Disposable workers. And they work very hard and they want to get approval. And guess what? People pleasers do not rise in the corporate environment. You actually have to be a leader. And in order to do that, you have to develop self-confidence. And none of these patterns that come from early childhood wounds will give you that self-confidence because it's all out there. It's all looking for the approval outside of yourself. And as long as you're focusing out there and you're putting all your energy out there, you're not connecting with your brilliance. You're not connecting with who you really are. You're not being authentic. So how do you get there? How do you get to your authentic self? Well, it takes work. As a PhD psychosocial analyst, I have discovered that there are two things that you have to do in order to get to your authentic self. One is to heal those emotional wounds. And how do you do that? You have to go through it. You can't put a Band-Aid on those. You can't ignore them. You can't pretend that they're not there. You can't believe that they're going to go away. You have to do the work. And then when you have allowed the emotions to flow through, to go through, not to be afraid of them. And that's hard because a lot of us are taught to be afraid of our emotions. But when you let those emotions through, then the next thing is important, and that is the thoughts. Because you let the emotions through and you start to do something different, right? You try out something different. I'm going to be different. I'm not going to push anymore. I'm going to trust in my heart. I'm going to trust in my brilliance. Maybe it doesn't happen fast enough. And the thoughts come in. Oh, it's not going to work. You're an idiot. Why are you believing this? Why do you think this is going to work? And they start undermining you. Or you actually see signs out in the universe that prove that you're going in the wrong direction. Because that's what you're looking for. Because that's the mindset. That's what the little girl, the little inner wounded child is looking for, is proof that you will have to go back to what she says, because she's got the power. She's got the hold on the body and all the chemistry in the body to make you feel really bad if you don't step into your true power. But it takes time and it takes support. Because, as I said, we're herd animals, we're social animals, and we need each other. We need people who will approve us. It's almost impossible to do this alone. In fact, I don't even think it is. For one thing, you need a roadmap, and you're not going to get it in here because the roadmap in here is already the one that you've been using. To a certain extent, successfully. It has gotten you some of that feel-good safety that you want, but it's also holding you back. It's holding you back if you need approval from somebody else. It's holding you back. It's only when you're confident that you get the real approval. It's when you want it and you need it and you're desperate for it that people pull away. That they are literally repelled by it because they can feel that wanting. And it's almost like vampirish. You are sucking the energy because you're so desperate. So you need to get into your brilliance and you need to develop the confidence. And of course, when you get into your brilliance and you start listening to your higher mind, to yourself, you're going to be invited to take action that is scary. And then you're saying, well, then I'm back to pushing again. In a way, yes. Yes, sometimes fear pushes. So my client, who was working really hard at work, she was pushing herself so hard, she was this performer, and she just could never keep up. She never felt good enough. Now, isn't that a sucky job where you never feel good enough? And that's what they want, is so they can get more and more out of you. And in working with me, finally, it dawned on her that it wasn't worth the price, because the price is your health. The price is your most important tool in your life, and that's you. And once you lose your health, you're lost. You might never get it back. You could spend years trying to get it back. So what to do? Well, you have to take those steps. You need a mentor. All the heroes had mentors. Look at all the hero books. They have mentors, people who show them the way. And you may have different mentors throughout the course of your life. Choose your mentor carefully. That mentor, the person, needs to be somebody that knows, understands, sees you, has been through the journey. You get a mentor who is successful already, they don't understand. A lot of these big, huge programs, they're going to transform your life and bring you lots of money. They don't understand. If you don't deal with the inner game, if you don't deal with your confidence, none of those formulas are going to work. So you need a mentor who has been through the trenches, that understands, but also has the self-confidence and the knowledge of how to get out. And that's what I have brought to my clients. The client who was the controller, who felt like she had to control everything. And she finally found a husband who gave her everything and then died very early, like, barely 10, 15 years, and then he was dead. And for 20 years she grieved because she felt cheated, because she wanted him back. And she went to psychoanalysts and therapists and nothing. And then we worked together, and in a few short weeks she was starting to change already, because I work differently. I work on the emotions and the thoughts and the community and spirit, all four. I bring them together into unity and balance. So how do you bring more love, more health, more wealth into your life? It doesn't really matter which one. What I have found is that most of all, most likely, if you have one, you're missing another one. Because you put all your energy in pushing into one and you're neglecting the other ones. There needs to be a balance. And there can be a balance. I truly believe that it is possible to have a balance in your life. But the balance requires a journey. The hero or heroine's journey. Don't go alone. It's such a difficult journey to do by yourself, because you listen to that voice inside that is scared. And when you are afraid, you release into your body chemistry that makes you feel worse. And then you have to climb out of a pit. When you have a mentor, your mentor will make sure that you climb out of the pit. So you want a mentor who not only understands, has the directions, but also has the strength and the resolve to keep you moving, to keep you inspired instead of pushing, to come from the flow within yourself so that it's easy instead of a struggle. And when you find that place of balance, when you find that place checking in and being connected with your true gifts, when you are inspired and excited and ignited, life flows easier. And the universe supports you, because the universe is here to support us in fulfilling our mission. If you would like to have a conversation, I have 15, 20-minute conversations. Click on the link over there. If you want to know more about me, go ahead and click the link to my website and read up on me, see whether we're a match, whether you want to go further, schedule a talk, and we can go over how I might help you to get over, to shift the pattern of pushing so that you come from that place of brilliance, from your gifts, from what you love to do, so that you are filled up, so that your energy is filled up instead of being depleted. So that's all I have for today. Be brilliant, and bye for now. Oh, and thank you for joining. I'm leaving right now, and come back later and take a look at the link and play the recording over again at your own convenience. Take care. Bye.